In order to understand the context of indenture better, here at the National Archives, we're able to read documents of the period and start to piece together the facts and details that led to indenture. Girmit comes from the word agreement, and agreements like this documented the name, place of birth, occupation, next of kin, and faith, and allows us an insight into the early lives of these individuals.
The National Archives is the official archive for the UK government, where 1,000 years of history is kept safe and made accessible to the public. These government records and documents belong to the nation and are for everyone to access. We know that information in these records can illuminate the past and can add to stories already known and stories yet to be told. There are so many stories within the records, and this project highlights just one of them.
South Asian British history has so many different facets. Our interest is in Girmit, or indentured labour. The global Indian diaspora estimates to be around 30 to 40 million people worldwide. In the 19th and 20th century, over 3.5 million Indians moved from one part of the world to another. Each Nutkhut project is carefully researched and developed with our partners. The National Archives here in Kew in London has been a constant source of inspiration. Many parts of the indenture story go missing, and archives and records here at Kew, for example, inform us of our shared and collective history and identity. The combination of economic botany, the mobility and movement of people to other parts of the world, the ownership and leasing of land, all coming together.
Our collaboration with Nutkhut and the Girmit Experience aims to get people more interested in our rich collection of records relating to indenture. We are working with some significant literature in the field to help open up insights, questions and discussions. Many Indians became indentured labourers to escape the widespread poverty and famine in the 19th century. Some travelled alone, others brought their families to settle in the colonies they worked in. The demand for Indian indentured labourers increased dramatically after the abolition of slavery. They were sent, sometimes in large numbers, to plantation colonies, producing high-value crops such as sugar in Africa, the Caribbean and the Pacific. Indians travelled to many places to work as indentured labour, and depending on the destinations, indenture began at different times. There may be terms used in the historical records that reflect attitudes and language at the time that may now be considered derogatory or offensive.
The history of indentured people offers a much-needed entry point into our collection for those who have an interest in this subject, for those whose family has been affected by indentured labour, as well as shining a light on this history for those who may have had little or no prior knowledge of it. As is described elsewhere in this film, we hold administrative records which give an idea of the number of people who were transported from India to the colonies. There are immigration passes, contracts between labourers and prospective employers setting out working conditions, as well as important speeches and all sorts of other insights. Each of these documents relates to real people with real hopes for their future. But we're just one part of the story. I hope that our records will encourage people to talk to family members, search in museums and archives, and start to unearth the wider story of indentured people.
Our starting point is the immigration pass, the Girmit or agreement. Each Girmitier or indentured labourer was issued with one. It contains information such as name, next of kin, age, bodily marks, occupation and height. It's the starting point for any ancestral research. This is my great-grandfather's immigration pass, which I obtained from the National Archives in Fiji. It's a ticket to a new life, a modern-day passport, but with conditions attached, limiting personal and collective freedoms.
So this is a file from 1907. It's regarding labour troubles. And here we have a story of Punjabi and Pathan migrants being brought over to Fiji, believing that they would get jobs as domestic workers or government workers, and finding out that actually they were just going to be given jobs as labourers. And here you can see what's being relayed in this letter about the problems that the migrants are bringing up, that they were misled by the recruiting agents and officials in India who told them that they would not have to do coolie work, but would get government work or work as domestic servants. That they get little or no money was another of their complaints. That proper food is not given to them. And finally, they experience some harsh treatment and have to work for longer hours than required by law. The outcome of this protest was the firing on some of the men and men were wounded. And as a result, the governor himself was quite embarrassed and felt that this was not the way he wanted things to happen.
Indentured labour was built on a sophisticated legal framework, therefore legitimising it. In many cases, indentured labourers replaced free slaves from the plantations, their conditions often no different than slavery.
So this is a file from 1907. It's setting out the condition and issues around coolie immigration to the colonies. And it's covering not just Fiji, but Trinidad, Jamaica, Mauritius, British Guyana and Natal. And here you can see a letter from the Fiji Immigration Agency setting out concerns put in a letter that are now going to be demonstrated through a set of newspaper articles, and the item has been sent to the Colonial Office. Here we can see some of the newspaper cuttings. The first two newspaper cuttings are setting out the poor condition in which Indians are being kept, and this is the argument that's being made in these two cuttings. One from the Statesman here as well, from September 27, 1907. However, on the next page, we also have a reply, and this reply is from the emigration agent for Trinidad, Fiji, Mauritius and Jamaica, a Mr. Bolton, who's setting out that actually the situation isn't as bad as is made out. And in this final paragraph, he sets out a most emphatic denial can, however, now be given to the statement that these Punjabis were recruited under false pretenses. And referring to an act, he says that it is possible to show that every intending emigrant, before he is permitted to leave his district, enters into a legal agreement in the presence of an Indian official specially appointed to explain its terms to him, and that the said terms are set forth very clearly in the vernacular on every agreement form. So here we have an example of a rebuttal. So this document here is a speech by Charles Andrew Freer. Charles Andrew Freer in this document is setting out his concerns about indenture. And here we have his important sentence saying, "So gentlemen, I do really feel, speaking as man to man, it is time that the old system was scrapped, and if there is any other way of doing it, well, do it. If not, abolish it altogether." It's important to note that Charles Andrew Freer is a friend of Gandhi's and is involved in the movement to change the system of indenture.
These are the real stories of real people's lives, the motivations, the fear and the hope of a better life and a better future. Motivations which continue to the present day.